Shattered echoes. Finn Calder sprinted through the luminescent corridors of Nyx Valen's ancient catacombs, his breath coming in desperate gasps as the shouts of the Stellar Guard echoed behind him. Find the human thief. Their voices bounced off, the crystal walls creating a disorienting chorus that matched his racing heartbeat. The artifact clutched in his hand pulsed with an inner light seeming to respond to his fear. "I'm not a thief," he muttered to himself for the 100th time since the chase began. "I'm an archaeologist." The distinction meant little to the guards who had been hunting him since he'd extracted the strange geometric crystal from its resting place, deep within the forgotten temple ruins. A blast of energy struck the wall beside him, sending crystalline shards flying past his face. One sliced his cheek, but Finn couldn't afford to slow down. The tunnel ahead forked into 3 passages, and without hesitation he dove into the narrowest one, hoping his pursuers would assume he'd take the wider, more accessible route. "He went left," shouted a voice that could only belong to Admiral Zenith, the relentless commander of the Stellar Guard whose obsession with preserving Nyxian relics had made him Finn's most dangerous enemy. The passage Finn had chosen grew narrower with each step, until he was forced to turn sideways to squeeze through a crystalline fissure. The walls hummed with strange energy and began to glow brighter in response to the artifact he carried. The sensation of being watched prickled at the back of his neck. "What have I gotten myself into?" he whispered as the path suddenly opened into a vast chamber, unlike anything he'd seen before. The ceiling soared hundreds of feet above, him composed entirely of floating crystal shards that refracted light in impossible patterns, creating a dance of colors across the polished floor. At the center of the room stood a structure that could only be described as a throne, but unlike any royal seat from human history. This throne seemed alive, formed from interlocking crystals that pulsed with their own inner rhythm, and surrounded by a field of energy that distorted the very air around it. Finn froze, realizing he had stumbled somewhere he should never be. The stories he'd heard during his 3 years studying Nyxian culture whispered of a sacred chamber, where their queen communed with the ancestors, a place forbidden to all but the royal bloodline. "The crystal sanctum," he breathed, the words like a prayer, his academic mind momentarily overriding his survival instinct. This was a place no human had ever documented, no outsider had ever seen. The artifact in his hand suddenly burned white-hot, causing Finn to cry out in pain. But he couldn't release it. The crystal seemed fused to his palm, drawing him forward toward the throne with an irresistible pull. He tried to resist, but his feet moved of their own accord as he approached the steps leading to the throne. The air thickened. Around him, time itself seemed to slow. The distant shouts of the guards faded away, replaced by a strange humming that resonated in his bones. A shimmer of light appeared above the throne, coalescing into a figure that made Finn's breath catch in his throat. A woman materialized before him, her skin a luminous purple that seemed to contain galaxies within its depths. Her eyes held the wisdom of millennia, yet sparkled with immediate curiosity at the sight of him, an intruder. She spoke her voice somehow inside his mind rather than reaching his ears. Or perhaps she tilted her head, studying him with growing interest, the one the crystals had been whispering about. Finn wanted to run, to explain, to apologize, but found himself dropping to one knee instead, the artifact pulling his arm upward, offering itself to the ethereal queen before him. "Your Majesty," he managed to say, "I am Finn Calder of Earth. I didn't mean to trespass." The purple-skinned queen descended from her throne, moving with liquid grace until she stood directly before him. Her presence was overwhelming, ancient power contained in a form of breathtaking beauty. "You carry the key of resonance," she said, reaching toward the artifact. "And you have brought it home at last." The moment her fingers touched the crystal alongside his, a shock wave of energy exploded outward from the contact point, knocking Finn backward as the world dissolved into brilliant white light, luminous contact. When Finn's consciousness returned, he found himself lying on a bed of softly glowing moss, his head cradled in someone's lap. The purple-hued hands that gently stroked his temple belonged to the queen, whose ethereal presence seemed both terrifying and comforting. "You survived the resonance," she said, her voice now audible rather than telepathic, though it still carried musical undertones that no human vocal cords could produce. Few would have weathered such a connection, especially one not of Nixian blood. Finn struggled to sit up, his entire body aching as though he'd been struck by lightning. What happened? What is this key of resonance? He looked at his palm, where the artifact had been. Only a luminescent symbol remained etched into his skin, like a tattoo that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "I am Queen Solaris Vela," she said, ignoring his questions momentarily. "Last sovereign of the Nixian celestial dynasty, and you, Finn Calder, have inadvertently fulfilled the first part of a prophecy that is older than your entire civilization." The chamber had changed since Finn had first entered. Now the crystals overhead rotated slowly, forming constellations that seemed to tell stories in light and shadow. The throne itself had transformed, becoming less rigid, more organic, as though responding to some new energy. "The key you found." Solaris continued, rising to her feet with fluid grace that made her flowing robes shimmer like the surface of water. "Was hidden 5,000 cycles ago when my ancestors foresaw a time of great change. They prophesied that an outsider would return the key to the sanctum, awakening powers long dormant." Finn stood shakily, his scientific mind racing to process what was happening. "I'm not special, Queen Solaris, I'm just an archaeologist who got curious about the wrong ruin." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "And now Admiral Zenith wants my head for disturbing your sacred sites." A slight smile curved Solaris's purple lips. "Zenith serves tradition, but not always truth." She approached Finn again, close enough that he could see the constellations that seemed to move beneath her skin. "The moment you touched the key, it recognized you. Your energy signature is unique. Finn Calder." Almost as if. She reached out, placing her palm against his chest directly over his heart. Finn gasped as a warm current passed between them, images flooding his mind of distant stars, ancient civilizations, and what seemed like memories that couldn't possibly be his own. "Our minds are linking," Solaris whispered, her eyes widening with wonder. The prophecy spoke of this, the echo merge, a sharing of consciousness that hasn't occurred since the first dynasty. Finn wanted to step back, overwhelmed by the intensity of their connection, but found himself instead moving closer, drawn to her presence like gravity. "I see. Stars, planets I've never known. Languages I shouldn't understand." His voice trembled. "And you, I see you across what feels like lifetimes." Solaris nodded. "And I see your world, Earth, its oceans, mountains, cities. They call to me as though I've walked there before." Her hand remained on his chest, their energies intertwining. "The prophecy calls you the Star Speaker, one who bridges worlds and awakens the slumbering power of Nyx Valen." A thunderous boom interrupted the moment as the far door to the sanctum shuddered under heavy impact. Admiral Zenith's voice carried through. "My queen, we detected an energy surge. The human intruder must have reached the sanctum. Allow us entry to apprehend him." Solaris stepped away from Finn, her regal composure returning instantly. "Your timing is poor, Admiral," she called out, her voice suddenly amplified. "The human is under my protection. The resonance has begun." Another boom shook the doors. "My queen, with respect, the human is a thief and a trespasser. Our laws demand justice." Zenith's voice carried both authority and concern. "He knows nothing of our ways or the dangers of the artifacts he disturbs." Finn tense, preparing to run again, but Solaris's calm expression stopped him. She approached a wall that suddenly shimmered, revealing a hidden passage. "Zenith is loyal but bound by old ways," she said. "We must complete the resonance before confronting him. The second phase requires us to reach the crystal spire where the key's counterpart waits." "Why trust me?" Finn asked, even as he moved toward the passage. "You don't know me." Solaris's expression softened. "But I do." Finn called her through the echo merge. "I have seen your heart. Your curiosity isn't greed. Your questions seek understanding, not power." She reached for his hand where the symbol glowed. And more importantly, the key chose you. It would not have bonded with someone unworthy. The doors, too. The sanctum groaned under increased pressure as Finn and Solaris slipped into the hidden passage, which sealed seamlessly behind them. They found themselves in a narrow tunnel, illuminated only by Solaris's natural bioluminescence. Her purple skin cast soft light that guided their way. The crystal spire lies beneath the capital, she explained as they navigated the winding path. A place even more sacred than the sanctum, where the original consciousness of our world still dwells. As they walked, Finn felt the symbol on his palm pulsing stronger with each step. Something was awakening within him, memories or knowledge that didn't belong to him, yet felt increasingly familiar. He caught Solaris watching him with fascination. "What?" he asked, self-conscious under her gaze. 500 cycles I've ruled alone," she said, her voice softer, more personal than before. "Bound by tradition, isolated by prophecy and power, none have seen me as I truly am. Yet you, a human stranger, see more clearly than any Nixian ever has. That's not my doing," Finn replied. "It's this connection, the echo merge." Solaris smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her regal features. "The echo merge reveals truth, Finn. It doesn't create it. The connection between us was foreseen, but its nature is unique to us." Her fingers brushed his arm, sending a cascade of sensations through him. In all the prophecies there was never mention of how it would feel. Before Finn could respond, a distant rumble shook the passage, dust falling from above. "They're following," he whispered. "Then we must hurry," Solaris replied, taking his hand firmly in hers. "The crystal spire awaits, and with it answers to questions you haven't even thought to ask." Together they ran deeper into the network of tunnels, the symbol on Finn's palm glowing brighter with each step, guiding them forward. As behind them, Admiral Zenith's forces closed in, determined to uphold traditions that were about to be shattered forever. Fated convergence. The crystal spire revealed itself not as the towering structure Finn had imagined, but as a vast underground cavern, where massive crystal formations grew from floor to ceiling. Their translucent surfaces contained swirling galaxies of light pulsing, in harmony with the symbol on Finn's palm. "We've made it," Solaris whispered, her voice filled with reverence. "Few Nixians have seen this place in 1,000 cycles. It's been sealed away, waiting." Finn stood transfixed by the beauty surrounding them. Waiting for what exactly? For the convergence. Solaris guided him toward the center of the cavern, where a single crystal pedestal stood isolated from the others. For the moment when two worlds could be bridged through understanding rather than conquest. As they approached the pedestal, the entire cavern responded, crystals brightening and humming with increasing intensity. The symbol on Finn's palm burned almost painfully, now pulling him forward. "Your people and mine," Solaris explained. "We're not always separate species, Finn. The ancient histories speak of a time when we were one civilization spanning multiple worlds. Earth was among them." Finn shook his head. "That's impossible. Human evolution occurred on Earth. Our archaeological record is clear, is it?" Solaris asked with gentle challenge. "Or are there gaps in your understanding, missing links that your scientists cannot explain? The Great Migration occurred after the sundering, when our ancestors were forced to separate and evolve in isolation." She placed her hand on the crystal pedestal, which immediately illuminated, revealing an indentation shaped precisely like the symbol on Finn's palm. "The key you carried is more than an artifact. It's a genetic key containing memories of our shared past." Finn hesitated, his scientific mind battling with the inexplicable evidence before him. "If what you're saying is true, then human and Nixian DNA should share markers beyond what convergent evolution could explain." "Place your hand on the pedestal," Solaris urged. "See the truth for yourself." Behind them, the distant sounds of pursuit echoed through the tunnels. Admiral Zenith was getting closer. With a deep breath, Finn pressed his marked palm against the crystal indentation. Effect was immediate and overwhelming. The entire spire erupted with light, projecting three-dimensional images around them. Stars, planets, civilizations rose and fell in accelerated time. Human and Nixian ancestors stood side by side, building great wonders across multiple worlds. Finn saw the catastrophe that separated them, felt the anguish of families torn apart as evacuation ships fled in different directions. "It's true," he whispered, as tears streamed down his face from the emotional weight of witnessing his species' forgotten history. "We were one." Solaris moved closer, her eyes reflecting the dancing lights. "The sundering cost us more than knowledge, Finn. It cost us balance. The prophecy speaks of restoration through the echo merge, a rejoining not of worlds but of understanding." The images shifted, showing Admiral Zenith not as he was now, but in previous lives. Always the guardian, always the protector, but sometimes misguided in his methods. Zenith has played this role before. Solaris said, watching the projections. "In each cycle, he protects what he believes is sacred, but he fears change and what he doesn't understand." Finn felt her hand slip into his, their fingers intertwining. "And us? What roles have we played in these cycles?" The crystals responded to his question, images shifting to show variations of themselves throughout history. Sometimes allies, sometimes adversaries, but always connected by a thread that transcended time and space. In some cycles they were scholars, in others warriors, but in every iteration, they found each other across the void. "The Seeker and the Keeper," Solaris whispered. "Your spirit always drawn to discovery, mine to preservation, together creating balance." A particularly vivid image appeared before them, showing two figures unmistakably, their ancestors locked in an intimate embrace. The raw emotion of the scene made Finn turn toward Solaris, who was watching him with an expression that mirrored the intensity in the projection. "Not all cycles ended in separation," she said, her voice softer. "Some found completion." The moment hung between them, charged with possibilities and ancient echoes. Their faces drew closer, the pull between them as inexorable as gravity. "My queen." Admiral Zenith's voice shattered the moment as he emerged from the tunnel entrance, flanked by stellar guards, their weapons drawn. "Step away from the human. The artifacts he's activated could destroy everything we've built." Solaris straightened her regal bearing, returning, though she kept her hand firmly in Finn's. "Admiral Zenith, you've served the throne faithfully, but there are truths you haven't been permitted to know." She gestured to the still-playing projections. "Witness our true history." Zenith's stern face remained unmoved. "Clever illusions created by stolen technology, my queen. This human has manipulated sacred artifacts to create false visions." "They're not false," Finn said, stepping forward despite the weapons trained on him. "Your civilization and mine share common ancestry. The key didn't recognize me by accident. It recognized familiar genetic markers." Zenith's expression hardened. "Silence, human. You've already corrupted the sanctum. Now you attempt to corrupt our history and influence our queen." He turned to Solaris. "My queen, under the ancient protocols, I must insist you submit to purification. The human's influence appears to have compromised your judgment." Solaris's expression darkened the stars beneath her purple skin, pulsing with anger. "You overstep, Admiral. No one commands the Queen. The protocols you cite were created to protect our knowledge, not to imprison it." Her free hand raised, causing the crystals around them to resonate with increasing intensity. "The time of isolation is ending. The prophecy unfolds as it was written." Zenith signaled. His guards who moved to surround them. "Then I must act to preserve our ways, my queen, even if it means protecting you from yourself." He drew a crystal blade that hummed with energy. "The human will be executed, and you will be cleansed of his influence." Finn felt power surging through his connection with Solaris. The symbol on his palm flared with blinding light, as knowledge that wasn't his own flooded his consciousness. He suddenly understood how to activate the spire's defensive systems. "Trust me," he whispered to Solaris, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Finn slammed his marked palm back onto the crystal pedestal, focusing his thoughts on protection. A shock wave of energy erupted from the contact point, knocking the guards backward and creating a barrier of light between them and Zenith. "This ends now," Finn declared, his voice resonating strangely with harmonics that weren't entirely human. "The division between our worlds has lasted long enough. The cycle of separation must be broken." Zenith struggled against the barrier, his face contorted with fury. "You know nothing of what you meddle with human. The separation was necessary. Our ancestors knew the dangers of reunion." "Did they?" Solaris challenged. "Or were they afraid? Afraid of change? Afraid of evolution?" She placed her hand atop Finn's on the pedestal, doubling the power flowing through the crystals. "The time has come, Admiral Zenith, to remember who we truly are and what we might become." The entire spire began to transform crystal formations, shifting and realigning themselves. The projections expanded, filling the entire cavern with visions not of the past, but of potential futures. Humans and Nixians working together once more, sharing knowledge, art, music, and more. As the vision surrounded them, Finn turned to Solaris, their eyes meeting in perfect understanding. The Echo Merge had shown them what could be, what should be. And in that moment, both knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, as the prophecy had always intended, celestial intimacy. The barrier of light held firm as Zenith and his guards retreated, temporarily overwhelmed by the power emanating from the crystal spire. In the momentary respite, Finn and Solaris found themselves alone, surrounded by the pulsing energies of the activated crystals. "They'll return with reinforcements," Finn said, his voice still carrying those strange harmonic undertones. "Zenith doesn't strike me as someone who gives up easily." Solaris nodded, her purple skin glowing more intensely than before. Tiny constellations shifting beneath its surface. The third phase of the resonance must be completed before they return. It's the only way to ensure the knowledge isn't lost again. She turned, to him, her eyes holding a depth of emotion that transcended their brief acquaintance. "But I must warn you, Finn. The final phase requires a deeper connection than what we've experienced so far." The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibility. "What kind of connection?" he asked, though something within him already knew the answer. Echoes of ancient memories stirring in his blood. "A complete echo merge," she replied, moving closer, until he could feel the warmth radiating from her, not just minds or memories, but essence adjoining that transcends physical boundaries yet requires physical catalyst. Her hand rose to his face, fingers tracing the contours of his cheek. In the cycles where our ancestors achieved balance, this was the way intimacy as the bridge between worlds. Finn felt his heartbeat quicken, understanding flowing through the symbol on his palm. The projections we saw. The embracing figures. "Yes," she whispered. "Spiritual connection, through physical union to complete the resonance we must become as one." Her eyes searched his. "I would not ask this if there were another way." Finn's hand covered hers where it rested against his face. "You're not asking," he said softly. "Some part of me has been drawn to you since the moment we met, not just because of prophecies or ancient connections." His other hand tentatively reached toward her, touching the luminous purple skin of her arm, watching in fascination as the stars beneath responded to his touch. "There's something between us that feels both new and eternal." Solaris smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her regal features into something breathtakingly beautiful. "The echo merge reveals truth but doesn't create it," she repeated. Her earlier words, "What we feel transcends duty." As if responding to their mutual acknowledgement, the crystal formations around them shifted again, creating a private chamber within the larger cavern. A platform of smooth crystal rose from the floor, forming what could only be described as an altar of sorts, though it resembled a bed, more than a religious structure. Finn and Solaris moved toward it, drawn by the pulsing energies that seemed to guide their every step. The moment felt both ceremonial and deeply personal, ancient ritual and spontaneous desire intertwining until they were indistinguishable. In joining, we restore balance, Solaris said, her voice taking on a formal cadence, though her eyes remained fixed on his with unmistakable desire. Two become one as worlds once sundered find harmony. She reached for the fastening of her elaborate robes, letting them fall away to reveal her form. Finn caught his breath at the sight of her. Her entire body held that same purple luminescence. Constellations moving beneath her skin in patterns that seemed to respond to her emotions. Her form was humanoid yet otherworldly, with a grace that defied human anatomy. Finn removed his own clothing, feeling strangely unself-conscious in her presence. The symbol on his palm had spread its patterns, extending up his arm and across his chest, creating designs that mirrored the constellations beneath Solaris's skin. "Beautiful," she whispered, reaching out to trace the patterns on his skin. "Your body accepts the connection even beyond the original marker." When they came together on the crystal platform, the contact of their skin created visible currents of energy flowing between them. Finn gasped at the sensation, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Each touch amplified the connection between them, creating feedback loops of pleasure and awareness that transcended physical sensation. Their bodies entwined as naturally as if they had done this across 1,000 lifetimes, which perhaps they had. The echo merge intensified with each moment of contact, thoughts, emotions, and sensations flowing freely between them, until Finn could no longer tell where his consciousness ended, and hers began. Solaris moved with ethereal grace, her body responding to desires he hadn't even consciously formed, yet anticipating his every movement. Their union felt both deeply physical and transcendently spiritual. Each caress, each kiss, each moment of deeper connection, activating new resonances within the crystal surrounding them. "I see everything," Finn whispered in awe as visions flowed through their joined consciousness. "The entire history of our peoples, the separation, the long journey back to each other. And I feel everything." Solaris responded, her voice echoing both aloud and within his mind. "Your curiosity, your compassion, your desire, not just for me, but for understanding, for connection." As their intimacy deepened, the entire crystal spire responded, intensifying its glow until the chamber was filled with blinding light. The symbol that had started on Finn's palm now covered both their bodies, creating matching patterns that pulsed in unison with their accelerating heartbeats. Their movements became more urgent, guided by both ancient instinct and the energy flowing through the chamber around them. The projections from the crystals shifted again, showing not just past or future, but infinite possibilities branching from this moment of connection. Timelines where humans and Nixians rebuilt their ancient alliance worlds, where knowledge flowed freely between stars' futures, where the artificial boundaries between species dissolved. As they reached the peak of their union, Finn felt something profound shift within him. His consciousness expanded beyond anything he'd ever imagined, touching the minds of every crystal in the spire, every living being in Nyx Valen, and somehow impossibly reaching all the way back to Earth itself. For one breathtaking moment, he could sense his home planet feel the billions of minds, going about their daily lives unaware of this moment of reconnection. Solaris arched beneath him, her eyes wide with the same overwhelming awareness. "The bridge," she gasped. "It's forming. We're creating the pathway between worlds." Their shared climax triggered a cascade effect throughout the crystal spire. Energy spiraled outward from their joined bodies, racing through crystal formations and up into the planet above. Ancient systems dormant for millennia hummed back to life. Across Nyx Valen, forgotten monuments began to glow with renewed power. As they lay entwined afterward, breathing slowly, returning to normal, the connection between them remained, a permanent bond forged through the echo merge. Finn could still sense her thoughts, her emotions, but now as a gentle presence rather than overwhelming flood. "It's done," Solaris said, tracing patterns on his chest where the symbol had spread. "The resonance is complete, the knowledge preserved, the connection re-established." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "But Zenith and the old guard will still resist any change to the established order, threatens their power, their understanding of our history." Finn nodded, feeling both physically drained and mentally expanded by their experience. We need to show them what we've seen. Make them understand that reunion doesn't mean destruction, but evolution. The sound of distant footsteps echoed through the tunnels leading to their chamber. Admiral Zenith had indeed returned. With reinforcements, Solaris rose with fluid grace, gathering her robes around her, though she seemed reluctant to cover the matching patterns that now adorned her purple skin. "They approach," she said, "but they cannot stop what has already begun." She reached for Finn's hand, helping him to his feet. "Are you ready to face them? To stand with me not just as the star speaker of prophecy, but as my chosen consort? The first human to join with Nixian royalty in 50,000 cycles?" Finn dressed. Quickly, the symbol on his palm now a permanent part of him, along with the expanded awareness that came with it. He could feel the approaching guards, sense their determination and fear. He could even touch Zenith's mind, feeling the Admiral's genuine belief that he was protecting his people. "I'm ready," he said, squeezing Solaris's hand. "Not for conflict, but for understanding. There's been enough separation." Together, they turned to face the entrance to the chamber, standing united as the final phase of an ancient prophecy fulfilled itself. The barrier of light had fallen, but they no longer needed it. The power of the completed resonance surrounded them like an aura, visible even to untrained eyes. The first guards appeared, weapons raised, then hesitated at the sight that greeted them. Finn and Solaris stood hand in hand, surrounded by projections that told the true history of both their peoples. The symbols covering their bodies matched perfectly, pulsing with unified energy that spoke of connection deeper than mere alliance. Admiral Zenith pushed through his soldiers, his face hardening at the sight. "So it's done," he said, his voice tight with controlled rage. "You've corrupted our queen and activated forbidden technology." "Not corrupted, Admiral," Solaris replied, her voice carrying the weight of her station. "Completed. The cycle returns to balance, as was always meant to be." Finn stepped forward, still holding Solaris's hand, feeling strength flow between them. "Your loyalty to Nyx is admirable, Admiral Zenith. But the isolation you've protected was never meant to be permanent." Zenith's hand tightened on his weapon. "And now you presume to lecture me on our own history, human?" "Not lecture," Finn replied. "Remind." He raised his free hand, the symbol pulsing brightly. "See what we've seen, Admiral. Know what we now know." A beam of light shot from Finn's palm, connecting with Zenith's forehead before the Admiral could react. The connection lasted only seconds, but Zenith staggered backward, his face transformed by shock as selected memories from the echo merge flowed into his mind. "Impossible." Zenith whispered, his weapon lowering slightly. "This cannot be true." "Yet it is." Solaris said, "The separation was meant to protect, not to divide forever. The time has come, Admiral Zenith. Will you stand with us as we bridge worlds once more? Or will you fight against the very purpose your ancestors swore to uphold?" Zenith looked between them, conflict evident in his expression as ancient duty battled with new understanding. The guards behind him waited for his command, their futures hanging in the balance of his decision. Cosmic resolution. Admiral Zenith's internal conflict played across his face as the echoes of ancient truth resonated through his mind. The guards behind him shifted nervously, awaiting his command. "I have served the throne for 7 decades. Zenith finally said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Upheld traditions I believed sacred." His eyes met Solaris's, then moved to Finn. "But I see now our traditions were incomplete fragments of a greater whole." He slowly knelt, placing his weapon on the ground. "My queen, the human star speaker, I stand with you." Like a wave, the guards followed their commander's example, weapons lowering, heads bowing. The resistance that had seemed inevitable moments before dissolved into acceptance. The cycle completes. Solaris announced, her purple skin luminous with power. "Today marks the beginning of reunion." The crystal spire responded, the entire structure pulsing with renewed energy. A beam of light shot upward, penetrating the layers of rock above, traveling through the palace and into the sky where it expanded, forming a beacon visible across worlds. "What's happening?" one guard asked, watching in awe. "A signal," Finn explained, feeling the knowledge flow through his connection with Solaris. "Calling to Earth, reactivating dormant systems our ancestors left behind. Bridges between stars opening once more." Solaris turned to him. Their hands still joined constellations beneath her purple skin, mirroring the patterns on his body. "The separation ends today," she said. "Not through conquest or dominance, but through understanding." "And us?" Finn asked quietly, for her ears alone. Her smile contained millennia of waiting. "We are the first, not the last keeper and seeker, finally reunited." Above them, across the vast distances of space, Earth's long dormant systems began to awaken, ancient monuments misunderstood for centuries glowing with new purpose. A bridge between worlds forming as two halves of a sundered civilization began their long journey back to wholeness. And at the center of it all stood Finn and Solaris, their unlikely bond, the catalyst that had finally healed an ancient wound. Their personal connection transcending prophecy, becoming something neither had expected, but both had somehow always known. Together they would face whatever came next as the stars themselves realigned to welcome a new age of cosmic harmony.